Thank you for joining us on Sheridan County Ag Update. Today I have with me Christine Hampshire, the owner of Crossy Dairy and Freedom Foods. And before we get started, I want to say a big shout out thank you to our sponsors, Heartland Kubota and Truebill Builders. Christine, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for letting me join you.
You bet. So let's talk some dairy cows.
I like that topic.
I think something people don't realize is there used to be a lot of dairy around this area. I know out on Big Goose, there used to be a lot of little dairies.
Yes.
And then they kind of went away. So what, and now they're coming back or?
Yes. Yeah, I'm probably not the expert on some of that history, but I do realize the same. There did used to be a lot in this area, small dairies that delivered to the Jersey Creamery right here in town. And I can remember when I was little going to the Fox Dairy. And so, yeah, I don't know all those details, but I hear stories often about families that had those. And I think it's just the way times have changed, right? There used to be a lot of small businesses and we relied a little bit more on our community's infrastructures and then that went away. We went to more commercialized agricultural pursuits. And so unfortunately we suffered in losing those small farms and ranches.
Yeah. So you have a fun breed, I guess, of dairy cattle called Normandy cattle, correct?
Yes.
Well, how did you get into those and what made you choose that breed?
Right. I'd never heard of them before just coming upon them during internet searching. So my family has a ranch out on the eastern end of Sheridan County near Leiter. We're on Clear Creek, and we have irrigated as well as pasture acreage where we run a pretty typical cow-calf beef operation like most people do in the county. But growing up, my family always had a family milk cow. And so I'm thankful that we had that. I didn't realize what a blessing it was when I was younger growing up. But as I had my own family and had little kids, my mom continued to have a milk cow and she dried up at one point, and we tried buying store milk and still didn't really realize the nutritional value of raw milk. Just noticed that the store milk definitely didn't taste like what we were accustomed to. And so then at that point I decided, well, I'll get my own milk cow so I can continue to provide that for my family. And growing up with the milk cows we'd had on the ranch, we had just kind of Jerseys or Holsteins, kind of more typical breeds. And I knew that there were some holes with those breeds. Holsteins are large, hard to keep much body fat on, the big feed bill, and not
they're
really.
Big girls.
Yeah, they are. They're large and not very good cream content. And then the Jerseys, of course, have wonderful, rich cream content in their milk, but again, kind of frail. They're hard to keep body condition on. They don't like the harsh Wyoming winters. And so just some things like that made me wonder, what are the other breeds out there that I could pick from now that I'm going to get my own? And just so internet searches, I learned about heritage breeds, and then stumbled across the Normandys, which aren't a heritage breed, but just kind of went down this rabbit trail through the search. And so the Normandys are a dual purpose breed from France, and they have fit the Wyoming environment exactly like I'd hoped. Being dual purpose, they're known for both meat and milk. In France, they're used for both. They both have great carcass merit traits, and their beef is enjoyed as well as their milk has wonderful components of protein and butter fat, and so it's used for a lot of the cheese industry in France.
Okay.
But being dual purpose like that, they are built more like a beef cow. So, growing up on a beef ranch and getting used to seeing Angus or Angus cross cows that, you can feed up and get some fat on and prepare them for winter, those kind of things.
And and they're pretty hardy for the winter.
Yes, exactly. And so the Normandys are like that. A lot of them, you could paint them black and they just look like an Angus. So they keep good body condition. They hair up well. They have a good feed utilization. They don't have such a big feed bill as some of the typical dairy breeds. And so they've really fit all of my hopes well and performed well in our environment that way.
Well, and you kind of hit on the raw milk and stuff. So I know that there's pros and cons. People are, oh, that's great, or oh, well, it should be pasteurized. Give us some of the benefits of the raw milk and being able to have your own and the cream and all that kind of stuff that you can do. What are some of those health benefits?
Right. Yeah, so there is a little bit of controversy on the topic of raw milk. It's really interesting that it has been criminalized for so long, and that history actually goes clear back to 1812. After that war, the United States lost a lot of their imports that were coming in from the British, and one of those was liquor, and so that's motivating. And so Americans had to start figuring out how to produce their own liquor, and towns were forming. We were starting to move away somewhat from that rural living and starting to have towns, and that was starting to form. And so they had to figure out how they were going to provide for those populations. And so they had these liquor distilleries that were creating, distiller's mash, the cast off from that process. And, they needed milk cows to provide milk for their communities. And so they started the first confinement operations. We talk about confinement operations now. Well, that was really the first confinement operations for dairy cows. And they used this cast off mash or swill from the liquor distilleries, and they thought that would be a good diet for the milk cows. But it was just the perfect storm of conditions, right? If you think back to then, they didn't understand sanitation. Workers had diseases like tuberculosis. They didn't understand cleanliness. The cows, were confined where it was dirty. They were fed a poor diet, which decreased their health. And so raw milk had issues then. But
it was the perfect storm.
Yeah. What's strange is for some reason it just didn't overcome some of that stigma. Because now, obviously, we have refrigeration. We understand bacteria growth and how to use proper sanitation to avoid those problems. And so it's strange that we still struggle with some of that. There's organizations like the Raw Milk Institute, which I've taken classes from, that talk about sanitation and cleanliness and proper handling. And so there's just so much knowledge now on how to produce raw milk the right way that I think it's good to know your producer. Like, I love when customers ask me questions about my processes, but it's come so far that there's no reason to have some of those same fears that there used to be. And so, yeah, we can take advantage of the health benefits, which are numerous. Raw milk is a complete food. It has everything you need. You could actually live completely on raw milk. In fact, the Mayo Clinic did a lot of health, wellness, disease treatment with just a raw milk diet decades ago. And so you can live on just raw milk alone. It has great immune boosting properties. It has wonderful benefits for children that grow up on it. There's a lot of European studies where real foods are accepted a little bit more than the United States, and they show significant decreases in asthma, eczema, allergies from children that grow up on raw milk. I get wonderful stories from customers. Like, that's the best thing about being involved in this now. I've sold raw milk for about 10 years, and being involved in it that long, I always hear wonderful stories from customers about how, it's actually lowered their cholesterol. It's helped with skin conditions like rosacea and eczema. It's helped even with things like ADHD, autism. Like, it's amazing. But our body needs real food. And so that's kind of what it boils down to. Raw milk is a real food and provides a lot of nutrition. Lactose intolerance is pretty much non-existent when you drink raw milk. I have dozens and dozens of people that have said, "Oh, I can't do milk, lactose, it just eats me up." And I said, "No, enzymes are very heat sensitive. So they're the first thing that gets destroyed in the pasteurization process. Well, lactase is one of those enzymes. So in raw milk, lactase is still present, which helps with that lactose digestion. And so every time somebody tells me they have a lactose issue, and I say, well, I know it's a little hard sometimes if it upsets your stomach, but be brave and try this. And they'll come back and say, yeah, I had no digestive distress at all.
I can remember my dad had cancer, and of course we went to MD Anderson and spent a lot of time. And I remember one of the things him and his doctor talked about, he had an older doctor, and they talked a lot about if we went back to eating like we did back in the 1800s, when you still grew your food and you had your chickens and your milk cow and you were very self-sufficient, the diseases probably wouldn't be as prevalent as they are now with all the pasteurization and the processed foods and everything. And you think about that and it just makes sense. And obviously, all the babies live off of baby calves and baby goats. They all live off of a raw milk diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before there was baby formulas that you bought in Walmart, what were those babies fed?
Yeah.
It was raw milk from some kind of an animal, a cow or a goat. And so, we could go down a huge rabbit trail on that. I'm very passionate about real food. Yeah. If you look at the disease rates in our country, they've drastically increased since we started eating more processed foods. If you look at our disease rate in our country compared to those of other countries that still have more natural diets, our disease rates are exponentially higher than other countries. So real food would heal a lot of our problems.
And I'm guilty. The obesity. I mean, the pop, the candy, the chips, all that kind of stuff. That's not the real food. It's good, but it's not real food.
yeah, for sure. It's easy to fall prey to all those sweet treats, and they have an addictive draw. The reaction that our body has to sugar and things is addictive. So it's kind of a tough thing to break. But real food is very nourishing and healing.
So you started doing this just kind of out of your kitchen for your family, and then this grew and grew, and now you have a storefront. Right.
Yeah. It's crazy where life takes you, I guess, that you don't totally expect. But like I said, back to just, wanting to make sure I had that milk supply for my own family. And then, pretty soon people are like, well, you have raw milk. Do you have any extra? And it really became a funny journey because, again, kind of some of that stigma that raw milk has, it was like I was peddling it around everywhere. I had coolers in the back of my car every time I went to town and met people in parking lots, and it just continued to grow. And
well, I remember seeing at one point, if you have jars, please bring them back. I need them.
And that's still a struggle, unfortunately. Please bring your jars back. Yes. I live an hour out of Sheridan, even though I'm in Sheridan County, I'm an hour. So when I bring the milk in, drop it off, I've got to get those jars, take them home, wash them, and have them to refill. So jar return is very helpful if you're my customer. But it was just funny how it developed. I began just packing milk with me everywhere, and then started doing Landon's Farmers Market. That's a wonderful market. That was a real blessing. And then I couldn't pack enough in my car on those Saturdays. I started again coming to town again, back to a Walmart parking lot meeting a second day of the week, and then finally just thought, it's really a blessing that this community has such an interest in our local foods and a desire for real food. And I thought, I think there's potential here. And I'd kind of hit a limit there. I couldn't fit any more in my car. I couldn't make so many trips to town. And so we opened the Freedom Foods Market on Main Street. And so that's been amazing. Not something I necessarily planned to do, but just seeing that need in our community for more opportunity for local producers to connect with our consumers in our community. And so we opened that in 2000. So that was kind of a crazy time, or 2020, I'm sorry, in COVID. And so that was kind of a crazy time to tackle that. But I think it was also a blessing in that timing because people saw our national food chain breakdown. There were so many things that weren't being supplied during that time and shortages. And so I think people started to realize it's worth it to invest in your health from local real foods, but it's also worth it to invest in that local infrastructure so that those foods are available.
Making plans for building a new barn, shop, or commercial building? Don't do any planning without a call to Sheridan's premier post-frame building and homes builder, True Built Builders, online at truebuiltbuilders.com.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. COVID really brought out I can have some backyard chickens in a garden. I should garden because I can grow my own food. And I think it really brought to light and made people want to do that again, because it kind of went by the wayside. I mean, if you lived on a ranch, you probably had a garden. You guys are an hour out of town, so I know you guys have you're pretty self-sufficient where you're at. You can't just run to the local grocery store and grab something.
Right.
So I really think and I've been down to the store and I love it just because it's local and you get to support your local person. It's like, oh, I need lettuce. I'll run downtown. I don't have to run out on the south end of town. Not that it's that far, but
right.
It's nice. It's right downtown.
Yeah. And the quality, you mentioned lettuce, Papa Joe and Wellborn Farms, and Western Variety Farms are some of our produce producers. And I know one time like tends to happen. You get busy, your food gets shuffled around in your fridge, and I had a head of Papa Joe's lettuce that was 3 weeks old, and I pulled it out and it looked almost completely brand new, completely fresh. And so sometimes those local foods cost a little bit more, but you get better quality and you're not throwing it in the garbage 2 days after your strawberries that you picked up from Walmart molded.
Well, and you know where they came from. They came from here, from local folks.
Right.
So, well, how many milk cows do you have now?
Oh, well, all in total, Normandy's, I have about 25 head. So I have to manage that, to try now. This has grown so much and I'm so thankful for that. I have to try to supply milk, 24/7, 365. And so I milk year round all the time. The cows get a break, but I don't. So cows need a break in their lactation. So before they calve, they get at least 2 months off. And so I have the cows stagger bred throughout the year. So it kind of cycles, like a group of cows are in milk at this time, then some of them get a break while the next group has calved and is coming into the milking line. So about 25 head, but they're not all in production at one time. So recently I've been milking 14 head. And so yeah, every morning out there, I get up about 4:30 and go milk. And some of those,
I assume you have a milking machine. I'm
I
assuming
do.
I'm assuming you're not doing them all by hand, because boy, you'd still be out there.
yeah, that would be very time consuming. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we always had a family milk cow growing up. So I kind of had a small little corner of the shop that my grandma had already set up as a milking parlor, just a little one-room parlor with a concrete floor and a head catch and a milk machine. So an old Surge bucket milker. Those were created sometime in the 1920s or something, and they were such a solid design that they've been made since then, slight modifications here and there, but they're such a solid design that a lot of people are still using those bucket milkers that are decades old. And
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, it's a great machine. And so I do have a single cow milk machine. So I still just milk one cow at a time in the morning. So it still is a little bit time consuming, but I have expanded from that little one room cow parlor that my grandma had. I have been able to add on a processing room. And so now right from milking the cow, I'm able to take the milk into the processing room where I have a bulk tank. I have a 60-gallon chilled bulk tank. So that, again, talking about like safe handling, that's a very big aspect of it, right? As soon as the cow is milked, that bucket gets dumped into the bulk tank, which is rapidly chilling it, getting that milk temperature down below 40 degrees very quickly. And then that keeps it stirred and agitated, and so that the cream is all mixed in, not homogenized, not processed like the commercial milk, but keeps it all mixed up and refrigerated until it's time to bottle. And so I've added a processing room. I can wash jars, where we wash hundreds of jars a week, and
bring your jars back.
That's right. There's another reminder. But yeah, it's been wonderful to upgrade there and have a facility to handle all of that. We do have a parlor in the works where I can milk 3 cows at a time, which would again increase efficiency by quite a bit, but it's one step at a time. So it's a real blessing to look back at changes that have been made over the last 10 years that I've been doing that. And so yeah, there's been some good things. The bulk tank, dishwashers, refrigerators, just a whole area to kind of handle that process. Cause like I mentioned, I'll get about 4:30 and start milking cows. And some days that's all I have to do then. I just have to get the cows milked and into the bulk tank. And then I go on about the other ranch chores with the beef cows. We do direct market some of our beef for sale as well. And then some days it looks different, where I'm up and milking, trying to get that done as quick as I can, filling jars, getting them loaded, headed into the Freedom Foods market to deliver. So just every day of the week is kind of different. Some days are for making yogurt. Some days are for deep cleaning. So
Well, and it's not like you can miss a day.
No.
I mean, when you took on this commitment, it's a huge, you're there every day.
Yes.
20 holidays, it doesn't matter. The girls still need milk.
That's right. Yeah.
So you were talking about calving. The Normandys, do they apparently produce enough milk to have a calf on side as well as milk?
Well, that's another really interesting management practice, I guess, behind a dairy. And so It kind of depends on the cow.
Okay.
The calves are always with the cow for the first, week of life, because those calves have got to get a good start. They've got to be healthy, and they need that colostrum right off the bat, and they need to have a good start to have their own healthy life. After that, it kind of depends on the cow. I don't milk share too often. And that again goes to sanitation. But there are some cows that will do it and some cows won't. Like I've had, I guess we've mentioned I have mostly Normandys, but I have had a variety of cows in the past. I had an Ayrshire who was pretty moody, and she could hold her milk up, we call it. There's a milk letdown. There's actually like a hormonal response that happens in their body. If you've seen a cow suck, or a calf suck, which I know you have, they go up and they butt that bag of that cow, and some of those actions on the calf's behalf then stimulate that hormonal response and that letdown of oxytocin and milk letdown in the cow, so that the calf gets that milk supply. Well, cows, even though that's a hormonal response, cows can also be kind of moody and control that. And that Ayrshire, she would not let her milk down no matter what. She just wanted that calf. And so sometimes based on their mood or their attitudes, their dispositions, there just isn't a milk sharing option. You just have to separate that calf, or else she just doesn't want to do her job as a milk cow. But then there also is just the health, like the sanitation aspect of that. If a calf is sucking on that cow, there's a possibility of a bacteria transfer from the calf's mouth to the cow's udder. And we don't want to have mastitis issues, which could compromise the quality of our milk. So usually that calf gets a good week with the cow, and then they get separated. And then that kind of depends. Heifer calves, I'm still always trying to build my herd to keep up with milk supply for this area. And so a lot of times heifer calves get kept around, and because the Normandys are a dual purpose breed, sometimes the bull calves get kept too, and we get to feed them out and see how those carcasses finish. Or sometimes we sell them, because there's a lot of people, like you mentioned, that now want to try to raise their own beef. They want to have their own chickens, raise their own beef. And so it's wonderful too to be able to sell a good breed that I know can be somebody else's family cow, whether that is as a milk cow or a beef, to feed their family, put on their table.
Well, and it seems to me, I already have gotten a phone call of, do you have a bum calf? Do you know somebody who has one? And you grew up doing it. I grew up doing it. As a kid, it's fun to have a bum calf.
Yeah.
In your 40s, it's not so much fun. It's another job. But as a kid, it's fun. And so it's great that there's those opportunities as well, that you have the calves that can go on and be fed out and go to somebody's dinner table.
Right. Then they get the chance to create that for their family, know where their food came from. And sometimes I have a nurse cow too that's dedicated to raising, 3 calves or something. So sometimes those calves don't go on a bottle. They get to have a surrogate mom. So there's just multiple ways to handle things. It is not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. Every day I'm constantly reevaluating, what's the best choice in this situation? What's the best choice for animal welfare? What's the best choice for, an outstanding product for my customers? And it's always reevaluating all the time.
Quality Kubota machinery and customer care from the heart. Proudly serving Sheridan and the surrounding area since 1996. Go online to heartlandkubota.com or stop by Heartland Kubota, 2450 Heartland Drive.
Well, fun. I learned a lot about dairy today. Grant, how about you? Well, I want to say thank you, too, for Shorty's Countdown to Calving. Crossy Dairy is going to be a sponsor, and actually, you get to vote on one of her Normandy cows on the contest. So let's talk about her.
Right. Yeah, we included Nevaeh in that contest. So she's one of my registered Normandys. I forgot to look up what her full registered name is, but Nevaeh is part of her registered name. That's a French name. And so, yeah, we included her in that. She's a perfect example of the Normandy breed. She's a big, big-bodied, broody, just really nicely built mama cow. And so she'll be calving in March. I think I gave on the website a little hint on when she might calve. But
Yes. She'll actually be in our second heat. We should be finishing our first heat of that up here first part of February. And then the later February through the first part of March she'll be in. So be sure and check that out and get your votes in right now for Shorty's Countdown to Calving. You can win gift cards to local businesses like Freedom Foods Market might be on there.
Yes.
And you can win some chamber bucks. So it'll be a fun contest.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's
Yeah.
a neat way for our community, again, to get a glimpse into what's going on the local ranches.
Well, and I think that, Sheridan is such a diverse county. And we really value our arts and everything, which is awesome. But it's great for some of these newer folks moving in to realize that there's still so much agriculture in this area.
Right.
And, that was one of the things we wanted to promote was there's still agriculture. And who doesn't love a baby calf?
That's right. They're very cute.
Well, Christine, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot about dairy. I hope that our listeners have learned a lot about dairy. And, if you have questions, I'm sure Christine is happy to answer any questions you might have about raw milk and the process of it.
Right. Yeah, I love interacting with customers. It's a really big blessing to, we've talked about the customer getting to know where their food comes from, but it's a blessing to me to get to see who I'm producing for, to get to visit with those families and see the children that are drinking the milk, that it's a wonderful interaction on both sides. And so, like you mentioned, we've got the Freedom Foods Market. It's open Tuesday and Wednesday, 10 to 6, Friday, 10 to 6, and Saturday, 10 to 4. I deliver Tuesday and Friday mornings. So that like as far as our dairy products, they're fresh Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I bring in another fresh batch Friday and Saturday. And so I love if I get to run into customers Tuesday and Friday mornings when I'm delivering. That's always nice. And we have over 40 local producers involved at the Freedom Foods Market now. So it's really grown from when we opened it, and I think we had like a dozen, and now we have over 40. So it's a great variety.
Well, good. Be sure and get down there. Get your jars back.
Please.
Another reminder, get your jars back. So, Christine, thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Your support with Shorties. And thank you to our sponsors, Heartland Kubota, True Built Builders. We appreciate you. And for more news, sports, and podcasts, check out SheridanMedia.com.